Ever wonder why some brands have die-hard fans who actually feel like a family while yours still feels kind of distant? Well, after working with more than 350 clothing brands, I've seen what content makes audiences feel cold and what makes them buy again and again and again. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact steps to turn your followers into a true fan community before your next clothing drop. But before I show you exactly how you can make this method work for you, you should know why your brand doesn't really feel like a community. And it's because the way you've been taught to run a brand is focused on getting lots of sales really quickly instead of building long-term customer loyalty. So let me explain. With this old way of thinking, the only way to win is to create a winning product. This is just another name for a standout piece that goes viral. And to do that, you need two ingredients: creativity to make a completely unique product and a lot of luck to see if it's actually something people want. So when it comes time to drop, you post and you post and you post in hopes that something catches, and it either absolutely blows up or, unfortunately, more often than not, it falls flat on its face, and now you're relying on paid ads to sell out. This method sucks. You can't build a real business on a strategy this unstable when you have no clue what your next month will look like. But here's the worst part. You do all that work to create a winning product and it still doesn't even feel like the brand has built any loyalty or engagement. And that's why you keep seeing brands launch one year and then vanish the next. And so that doesn't happen to you, I'm going to show you how community-driven brands work. They don't have to rely on paid ads or winning products. Instead, they have a core base of loyal customers that buy again and again and again. So instead of needing new customers every time, they just slowly grow their existing fan base. But how do you do that? Well, now I'm going to show you 5 simple steps I've used to help brands turn their followers into fans and loyal customers before their next drop. And here's a real life scenario that makes this system easy to understand. Remember when you were in school? At recess, all the students would split off into their different groups. So by the running track, you had the sporty group, and over there are the cheerleaders. I was always sitting with the music kids. But unfortunately, there were also those kids that didn't really have anything in common with anyone. And it's sad to say, but usually they would be left out to eat lunch alone. You feel bad for them, but it is the truth. And clothing brands work much in the same way. If you don't pay attention to what group you're trying to attract as a brand, you might be left to sit alone with no community and no customers at all. But if you want to build a true community, step 1 is to decide what kind of people will join your group. But how do you do that? Well, just like school friend groups, you need a specific lifestyle or interest that your community will all have in common. It's the thing that your customers bond over. Now, having worked with hundreds of brands, I rarely come across anything new. So I compiled a comprehensive list of all the different brands and their unique communities over the years, so you can just choose one from the list. And if you're stuck here, pick 1 or 2 that feel exciting to you and then blend them together. For example, you could be a clothing brand for Christians that live in New York City. And if you already have an idea of who you want in your community, you can test and see if yours will work by comparing it with the others on the list. Or maybe you'll even find a brand targeting a similar community as you, in which case you can see what they're doing to get some inspiration for what kind of content you can make and just do it a little bit differently. So if you want access to this document for free, I've left a link in the description. And now that you have your target community, I'm going to show you exactly what to post to make your brand feel like it's just for them, so you never need paid ads again. And one brand that does this exceptionally well is Stone Island. Their community is so strong that they've continued to sell everyday clothing products for thousands of US dollars for decades. And here's how. They show us the product, but then they also tell us who's wearing it and what kind of person they are. And they do this over and over again for different people in the community that they're targeting. For example, here's a face you may or may not recognize. They've got this designer Clint, and they do a sort of mini collaboration with him. But the craziest part is that this content is wildly simple and repetitive, and it continues to work every single time. And here's how. They choose someone from the community and make 3 different posts about them, show the product in the process, and gain a crazy cult following. But how do you do that? Well, first, you have to find the subject of your content. For most brands, I would suggest reaching out to micro-influencers that are already established in whatever community or niche that your brand is in. And the easiest way to find them is by using Google Advanced Search features. Let me show you how this works. So let's say that I want to build a community for artists. Well, on Google, I would search this exactly: site:\instagram.com, and then in quotations, artist, and I'm going to put my city, Sydney. So for your brand, keep the beginning the same, the site:\instagram.com, and then tailor it to your brand. So a community keyword in quotations, and then your local city in your quotations. And it doesn't take long before I find micro influencers near me that I could feature in my clothing on my brand page. But what are you actually going to create with them? Well, here are the 3 specific posts that we can take from Stone Island, no matter what your community is. And the best part is they recreate these same 3 posts over and over again, and so can you. So now I'm going to show you exactly how to make these for your brand. And the first one is a lookbook, but it's not the usual kind. Most brands will do a professional shoot in a studio with nameless models, but the Stone Island lookbook is totally different. It's not just some product shots. It actually feels like the brand has a deeper connection with their customers and is in touch with the community that actually wears their stuff. And the way that they've achieved this is, instead of doing a shoot with a random model, they've done it with this musician and even told us his name, Dave. And then instead of a white backdrop studio, they've taken the photos in a place of significance to Dave. And so here's how this works for your brand. Put your micro influencer in a place of significance to them, doing an activity that relates to your brand, and make that the backdrop of your lookbook. So if you're building a clothing brand for artists, for example, it might be in their creative space. And then in the caption, you can write something like your brand name and then X, and then the micro influencer's name. But the next 2 posts I'm going to show you will help your brand create a real connection with your community. And here's how Stone Island do it. With the same guy as before, Dave, the second post is a storytelling video focused on him. So it's his life story, his hobbies, interests, and values as they relate to the brand. And since their brand is really about creatives and artists of all different kinds, he's of course going to be talking about his music. This is super powerful because instead of seeing a product as just a bit of fabric, we now see the type of people that wear the product. This is why customers end up tying themselves to brands and becoming super fans. But you're probably looking at this and thinking that making this video looks super complicated, right? Well, it actually isn't, because there are only 2 things you need. And the first is a good story. And lots of brand owners struggle here because they aren't natural storytellers. But the best part of collaborating with micro influencers is that you don't have to tell the stories. You just have to ask the right questions and they tell it all for you. And to make it really simple, I just wrote the top 3 storytelling questions I give to my clients to ask their subjects, no matter what kind of influencers that they have. So hit record and ask them these questions. First, take me back to the moment you realize these are my people. Where were you? What could you smell? And who else was there? Here, you get their backstory. And then you're going to ask, what's something you believe that not many people do? And now we're going a little deeper into who this person is and what they care about. Finally, ask them, tell me a specific story of a time you overcame an adversity with what you do. And here we get the conflict or a problem and the resolution, which are essential elements of every story. And the last thing you need for this content is cutaway footage, which is just the photos and videos which you put over the top to show what your subject is talking about. So these could be old images from when they were young, or videos of places that they're speaking about, or just anything in between. But how do you get that? Well, there's really two ways, and the first is, again, to ask them, see what they have on their camera roll or stored up in old photo drawers, and ask them to send it to you. Or you could just shoot new content. Maybe they mention a park that was important to their childhood, for example, or maybe it's their creative space that they work in. Find anything that resembles that and then shoot fresh content with them in person. And if you're really clever, you could probably do both. Now, the third piece of content is actually the most simple but effective. So much so that it's got people commenting things like, "Dave made me buy my first Stone Island." Let me show you. It's this simple video here where they are following Dave around with a camera as he walks us through his space and shows off his collections. But this isn't random. In fact, all over the internet, there are other brands creating this same type of content, but for different types of people, showing off different things that relate to them. Like, here's the brand Cortez with 1.4 million followers creating the exact same content with a rapper. And if you want to remake this content for your own brand, here's a simple formula. This video is your micro-influencer showing the camera something relevant to what they do and what your brand is about. So if you're a brand for DJs, you'll have them perform a new mix. Or if you're a brand for surfers, they'll walk us through the different surfboards they have, why they use them, and what for. And for the editing, just keep it simple. Don't add any fancy effects or transitions. Just cut out the boring bits and keep it under 90 seconds. But here's the thing, most brands stop here, and if you do too, it'll all fall apart. So in this next part of the system, I'm going to show you how to turn these 3 posts into a long-term content strategy so you can continue to grow your audience and turn it into a community. In fact, using what I'm about to show you, one of my clients went from this to this and was able to quit his job in just 10 months. So what is it? Well, you can take the same group of 3 posts and repeat it over and over again with different people. So with each micro-influencer, you create 1 lookbook carousel, 1 storytelling video, and 1 show and tell post. And a question most of my clients usually ask about now is, how often should I post, Elijah? And the truth is, there is no maximum limit. You're not going to annoy your audience with spam because they only see a fraction of your content anyway. However, quality does matter. So a simple rule of thumb that my clients with day jobs and side hustles stick to is 1 different micro influencer each week. And if you do all 3 posts for each person, that'll amount to 3 posts per week, which actually puts you ahead of 90% of clothing brands under 10,000 followers. So now you've got the strategy to grow your community before your next drop. When should you release your products? And when you do, what should you post to engage and monetize this audience you've built? Well, click the video on screen now to see how I helped one clothing brand go from 2 sales from his friends and family to a sold out clothing drop in just a few weeks. I promise you'll enjoy it, especially if you made it this far and enjoyed this. I don't even know what you're still doing here. I'll see you over there.